Right. I have Jigar Patel with me. He is a Hair Restoration Network member and a patient of Dr. Patella. Jigar, thank you for doing the podcast. And honestly, thank you for showing your face because I know in your initial thread, you were, I think, a little reluctant to kind of come out in public. But, it makes such a big difference when you actually see the person's face because you see how much hair can impact your appearance. And I have to say your hair looks absolutely fantastic. So thank you for doing this podcast. You had 12,501 grafts via FUE. Now,
Yes.
remind me again, how many of those grafts are beard hair?
About 5.5, approximately around 5.5 is beard. And
Wow.
about
Wow.
seven, yeah, yeah.
Wow. And I mean, so you had it in your under chin or on your on wow.
Yeah, so pretty much from across the place, I think he didn't touch the mustache, tried to keep the goatee area. But other than that, most of the hair were taken from below the neck area around here. Uh, I didn't much care much about that area getting a beard there.
Yeah.
But some from here as well. But surprisingly, Melvin, even if I want to grow a beard now, I can. It's really, I can
Wow.
pull it off. It's not bad at all. I mean, fortunately I had to shave for a meeting, but yeah, I can still grow a beard.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. So have you noticed anything with the beard hair on top? Like have you noticed a difference at all? Or, what's your experience with having, 5,000 beard grafts?
Yeah, no, I was really concerned about that to start with, but I was in a place where, what, I have nothing to lose, pretty much lost what I had here. So let me go all in
Yeah.
and see how it works out. So, no, I mean, surprisingly, it's not as bad. I mean, so it's not going to be exactly like your scalp hair, right? Let's get that out. It's a beard hair, it's a different texture. You are going to feel a little bit of a difference, no question about it. Can I look at it and pinpoint, oh, these are the beard hair versus the scalp hair? No, I can't. They
Wow.
are all jumbled up, mixed up so well that I can't. The one difference that I do notice is that if I let my hair grow much longer, than maybe another half an inch than what I have right now, I'll start to see some curls towards the end. And
Uh-huh.
then it will start to look a little fuzzy, maybe. But I can still work with it if I really spend some time on it. I can. But other than that, with this length that I currently have, I see no difference. I feel no difference. I can just run my hand through, just really, I don't really see much of a difference, to be honest.
And let me share my screen to show, you know, um, the public here. This is what you look like
Mm,
pre-op. This is what your hair looked like before. Now, this is
right.
classic diffuse Norwood 6 pattern hair. And as you can see here, you had, you know, this is like pretty much how my hair was. Like it dipped down towards the
Mm,
crown. It kind of got really low. Um, Same here. You can see, you have some good density in your donor, strong. And the
right.
crown for me is what really was like, wow, it's such an incredible transformation when you look at,
Yeah.
what your crown looks like now. And I'll go ahead and I'll jump to the last page here, or actually I think the last page is here, so we can kind of show, I think it's right here. So
Yeah.
this was your last update. I mean,
Right.
look at the crown right there. I just see if I can close up a little bit. That looks unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the
And
donor
and
looks
and no,
unbelievable.
yeah, and no product. I mean, at this point, the picture that you see here, Melvin, I have used no fibers. Really, pretty much just after washing my hair, shampooing, and just blow dry and comb it, and that's the state that you see in its most natural. I might have colored like 15 or 20 days earlier, uh, but that's about it.
Wow. Wow. That's unbelievable. I just want to show the people just the before and after again. You can see here this was before, and I think been officially a year, right?
A year and a few months. So I think
Okay,
I've been about 16 months now.
16
Yeah.
months. And
Yeah.
what I want people to appreciate really is look at the shape of your donor. Like that you've had, let's see, if you had 12, so you had about what, 8,000 grafts from your donor, something like that?
7,000 from the
7,000 from
head.
the
Yeah.
donor.
Yeah.
And you cannot see, and this is probably like what, a number one or a zero guard.
Yeah. 0 to 1 fading. Yeah.
You can't see anything. I mean, you can't really tell. This is just it's an unbelievable, transformation because, 10 years ago, people would
Mm.
said, 7,000 grafts, your donor would be depleted, you're going to see signs, most people can't get that many grafts. But here you see that your donor looks really, really good. And I would say, you probably have at least another 2,000 grafts. I don't know if Dr. Patella has told you, what he
Yeah.
thinks the you have left.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're exactly on the point there. So can still take a couple of thousand from there, still have a plenty of beard to go around if I need to, and still a lot of chest hair if it comes to that. But
Yeah.
hopefully not.
And are you on medication?
Yes, yes, I am. I am taking minoxidil 2.5, and I'm taking finasteride 1 mg every day.
Okay.
Uh, Biotin I take also, and just the every 3 day shampoo, ketoconazole. That's about it.
Yeah. And you won, I think you were what, second place for best or third place for best hair transplant of
Right.
2024. And yeah, I think you guys can see why. For those of you who are joining, I'll go ahead and just kind of share again my screen to show you guys his transformation. So that was the top, and that's the crown for me, which is the most incredible
Yeah.
because the crown was really a large area, and I mean it looks
Yeah,
fantastic.
and the crown was something that I was always particularly worried about, Melvin, because especially when I was seeing a lot of before results from different surgeons all across, um, crown usually gives away that something has been done, and that was my concern. But then, I was like, it is what it is. There's not much we can do, and especially with the beard hair going in, that was another concern that, now I have a different texture. How is that going to play out?
Right, right.
But the way it blends in, that's a really, really surprising to me. And maybe I might be biased on my own hair, but I do
Yeah.
get a lot of compliments. Previously, well, when I used to always be concerned that I hope nobody notices my head. Now I'm concerned that, I hope, I'm worried that they won't. You know,
Yeah.
and
Tell me how your life has changed since getting the procedure.
oh, dramatically. I mean, uh, it was the whole reason that I went in was that I started losing my hair when I was 17, 18, or 16, around that age. Initially, I thought, no big deal, maybe this is how it works, and I have a plenty of time. I'm not just going to lose it overnight. Few years later, now I'm struggling to, make things, trying this way, that way, front, back, just trying to hide things. Uh, Works for another few years, and then the reality strikes, and I'm like, okay, I can't hide it anymore. And then it was more like, either I find a way to deal with it, you know you know in terms of my confidence, self-esteem, emotionally, anxiety, either I find some way to deal with it from within, or I bring the hair back, one or the other. And so that's when I started to research. Uh, Initially, it was all about, because I was Norwood 6'7", I knew that there is no medication that can reverse it back, right? There's no
Right.
no way other than some medication plus the hair transplant. And so, I was like, okay, I cannot stay in this state of, you know, always being concerned about how I look like, how are people looking at me, trying to avoid parties, or, trying
Yeah.
to avoid, all those little things that I wish I'd been part of, and I had to just dodge. Oh, I have something else come up. I can't make it, just little things like that with just adding up. And then it came a point where I'm like, this, I just cannot deal with it. Let me just fight it out. And that's when I started the research. Uh, Obviously, once you start the research, then it's all about, you see all this hair mills and then $2,000, and you bring your
Yeah.
hair back, and all of a sudden you look great. And I almost fell for it, to be honest, because
Tell me
there's
about
no
that.
escaping it. Yeah, I mean, once you start researching, you feel like, okay, few days of research, and you think you know everything, right? Because the first thing you come across is all these hair mills promising you, great results for, $2,500 with the hotel and all the
Yeah.
other amenities that come with it. And I almost fell for it. I'm like, okay, these are all this many after, before and after result. And as a research, what you try to do is you try to, cross-examine things. So I would go on a Google or Trustpilot, and everything looks great. Oh,
Right.
great, 5-star reviews, and you like, okay, there is, what more can I do and everything looks good. So, I was ready to book. I, in fact, have had paid some money up front, to fly to Turkey. I'm not saying that all the surgeons in Turkey are bad or anything like that,
Right.
but obviously, the ones that you come across in the initial phase of your research, at least in the first 1 month or 2 months, you're not, it's really hard to look beyond that and see other things. So, I almost did it. And then I came across, Hair Restoration Network. Initially, I'll be honest, I did see the forum, and then I almost like, okay, a forum,
W-
people trying to put things on it. I don't know, I'll just trust the Google reviews
So
before
you were
anything
more
else.
trusting of Google than the forum. What it was kind of your thinking behind that? Were you kind of like, well, a forum of guys, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, what was your thinking of that?
Yeah, my worry was that, anytime there are forums, I was like, okay, I don't know who are the people behind it. It's like, who is running this, or is this being sponsored by some big company, or bunch
Right.
of people who are, and Google in my mind is like, okay, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come and write the review, and it's, no, but there's no way to hide the truth in
Right.
that case. And I was wrong. I was very, very wrong in that regard. But then I started reading HRN, forum after forum after forum. And then I would actually go to a science behind it and cross-check the science, compare what people are saying versus what science is saying in that
Right.
regards. And then the dots started to connect, and I was started to see real people, real results, real experiences. And I'm like, okay, now the research starts really,
Right.
and then I actually spent a lot of time on HRN, uh, and just to understand more and more. And I think the every day that went by, I realized that there was a lot more to hair transplant than just FEU versus FUT, or picking one doctor versus the other. It was just a lot more. There's a math involved. You have certain amount of
Right.
donors, you have a certain amount of area. Do you use all your donor versus beard? How do you mix and match? What do you do? So there are so many in-depth questions that were answered, using that forum. So I'm glad
Yeah.
I did that.
I'm glad you found it. Yeah, I'm always interested in like how people find the forum because, and I'm sorry that there's a noise outside, but
Yeah, no.
I'm always interested how people find the forum because it's sort of like hidden in Google, because I feel like
Mm,
Google will obviously prioritize the hair mills that are paying them to kind of get first place. So that's why when you start researching, you find all the hair mills first, because they're
yes.
spending so much money on Google ads that kind of hits first. And then obviously Google has their ratings, but obviously you don't know who's writing these reviews on Google or
Right.
Trustpilot or even Yelp. You know,
Yes.
anybody
Yeah.
can write a review in a couple of minutes. Whereas,
Mm,
like, what I like to tell people about the forum is, it's very difficult for clinics to fake month to month progress.
mm.
Not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult because that takes a lot of time and energy. And most, hair mills don't want to spend that time and energy to try to fake something like that. So and you can also message users, right? Like, I think
Right.
before you had your hair transplant, there was, what's his name? His username. He was one of the first Americans that went to Dr. Patella.
Yeah.
His
Mm,
name, his username is escaping me, but he was in 2023. He was in the running of best hair transplant results. I think he took third place as well.
mm.
So you can message him. You can like,
Right.
people I'm sure have messaged you
Oh
and
yeah.
asked, how was your experience? How was customs? How long was the flight? And all this kind of stuff. You can reach an actual person. So that's what I really love about the forum. And I'm so thankful to people like you who are not only posting their results and their reviews, but you're willing to go on camera and share your experience, which not too many people do. So, thank you for that. Really, seriously.
Oh no, I thank you, Alvin. I thank all the other members of our forum because if it wasn't for that forum and people who were, sharing their experience, I really wouldn't have made the choice that I did, and I really wouldn't have been sitting here, to be very honest. So, I thought, if when I was researching, I really needed that kind of an, experience sharing from people. I needed that kind of a support that I really found on HRN, and now it's the time for me to really give back as much as I can, really. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be
thank you for that. Do you mind kind of just like bending down, seeing how the hair? Wow, that's amazing, and that's with the light shining through. That's
I
with
am
the light.
exactly sitting right next to the window. I just wanted to make sure that the natural light comes in. So I'm really
Yeah,
right next to the window, and there is a natural light coming,
wow,
from here.
that's incredible, absolutely incredible, and
I don't
yeah,
mind
and the
any
crown.
however
Wow,
you want.
yeah, that's great. Yes. I mean, you don't get more honest than that. I mean, that's about as transparent as you can be. It looks fantastic. The donor for me is really what looks the best, because you cannot see any sort of patches or halos, because this is kind
Right.
of a big problem. I'm sure you see on HRN. Actually, I had to start a whole hair transplant repair forum because there were
Mm,
so many repairs. And big problem is with the side of their donor will look kind of over
mm,
harvested and patchy and stuff like that, but everything looks evenly done. This is sort of the telltale sign of going to a high quality surgeon.
yeah.
Which I'd like to segue into. Tell me about your experience. Like, how was it? You flew in from East Coast US
Right.
into Brazil. Take me through your experience, day one. How did everything go?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, first when I decided to go with Dr. Patella, to Brazil, and sometimes I read a lot of people saying, "Oh, I want to restrict myself to a certain region or certain country." My advice is please don't do that. If it's just a few more hours of a flight, versus getting a great result, why not take it? It's not
Right.
such a big deal. So, I mean, so flying from, I flew from JFK, New York airport, went to Rio de Janeiro, where I had a long leg, so a few hours of layover there, and then flew into Victoria, Brazil, which is where Dr. Patella is. So flying in, going from here, I was lucky. My wife was traveling with me, so I always helps to have someone coming along
Yeah.
with, on a long journey like that. So that was good. There was a person already waiting for me at the airport. I had some difficulty with my luggage. It was a little bit delayed, but the person was patiently waiting for me, that was sent by the clinic. I met him. We got to our hotel, which was all pre-booked and all ready before my arrival. So that always helps. That reduces all the stress. So going in was not a problem. And I reached there in the evening. Next morning, I had an appointment with Dr. Patella, just the consultation to make sure that that was the first time he was seeing me in person. So he wanted to do this, at least a day in advance, where he can see how my head looks in real, and then actually talk through with me, one on one, face to face, with my expectations, and
Oh,
the reality of what's possible. And I think that was really, really very, very important. And I think that research that we talked about earlier also helps for you to set some realistic goals, for yourself, because when you go in with what's reasonable and what's realistic, then you can avoid, the disappointment and all that other stuff. So next morning, sitting with Dr. Patella, he looked at my scalp, and then, I'm sure you know about his software that he has,
the
that he basically
the
uses
scalp
to,
scan.
uh, yes, the scalp scan, to come up with the approximate, what are the number of grafts that we're expecting. And then he talked about, what are the things that are bothering me, what are the things that I want to. So that conversation was, pretty open, transparent. I told him what my expectations were. He told me what is possible realistically, using my donor and things. And then we spent some time and agreed on, what needed to be done for the next morning. So then that day I had some time to go around in Victoria, just explore. It's a pretty good location, it's a really nice, quiet city, by the beach. So you can go out, explore, and the mall is there. And then really, next morning, 6 a.m. is when I was to report. The driver was there again from the clinic to pick me up. So I was taken, and then the surgery started from 7 a.m. So it was day one, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Couple of breaks in
Oh,
between. We did have a lunch break for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And you can ask for a break in between anytime you want. The team was pretty awesome. They would, allow you to really relax if you wanted to. So 2 straight days, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Day
wow.
one, approximately 6,000 grafts overtaken. So first was, one side of the beard, and one side of the scalp, and back, that were transplanted, in the first half of the
This
region. Yeah,
and then
yeah,
second day
the
was the other
hairline.
half.
The second day was the other side. Uh, so it's
How
really no
how
difference
involved
between
was
day one to
Doctor
day two.
how
Oh,
involved
yeah.
was Dr. Patella during the procedure? Was he always in was he there more, most of the time?
Yeah, yeah, he was there most of the time. He may have gone out maybe for a few minutes here and there, but he was always there, comes back. And I think the critical aspects of the surgery, taking the beard hair from certain specific area and doing the hairline, he was always present. So that was a big plus also, because I could always hear him in the background. He was constantly telling people, to do certain things, and having his presence, because I had already talked to him a day earlier, and we knew what the plan was, him and myself, and he communicated that plan to his team very clearly. And him being there all the time, all that, put me to ease immediately. So that was a good, good thing to be.
Yeah, and that's sort of like you know, eh, it's so getting a hair transplant is so personal, and I feel like
Mm,
there's a lot of stress that goes on, especially when
mm,
you fly to another country and you're there with your wife. And, I'm sure she's being supportive, but there's things that are going on in your head. And, you know, having that support, that doctor there, you doing
yeah.
the critical aspects of the surgery makes a huge difference. And this is really what you're not going to get with a hair mill. With a hair mill,
Yes.
you'd have gone. sure, they would have picked you up from Istanbul airport, and they would have gone. You could have gone to a nice hotel and everything. But the day of the surgery, you would have not met a. You would have seen a doctor who would have just drawn the hairline. They would have
Hmm.
rushed you into a room with 12 technicians. They would have start doing everything, and you would not see the doctor for the rest of the day. And your donor would have been hammered. The results, if you're lucky, it wouldn't have grown
Mm.
that well, and you would just pretty much look kind of how you did before. If you're lucky, if you're
Right.
not lucky, you would have had to undo a lot of that mess. Unfortunately, it's what we're
Right.
seeing on the form. Having to take out surgically all those bad grafts and everything. So it's so important to research, and this is why I
Yes.
do these podcasts, because people, they you can take it from me, and obviously people will say, you're biased, you're whatever, you get
Mm.
paid, and that's fine. Totally fair. Totally fair argument.
Mm.
But that's why I have people like you, Jigar.
Mm.
I have people like Clayton, who went to Dr. Zarev, to kind of give their honest
Yeah.
feedback. No, and you have no affiliation with anybody. You're just a patient sharing their experience.
Absolutely, and I would have
So
shared my experience if it was, negative. I would have said it because, then I would want
yeah,
people to, be aware, and because it's positive, I must also report it that way. So it's really,
yeah,
the best part was, and I'm like you said, I'm not really affiliated to Dr. Patella. It's not like I've talked to him before or anything like that. Uh, you know, you mentioned about, how stressful the whole part could be, like you going there. And by design, I'm someone who is always anxious about things. So, you know, you
yeah,
know, it was so great that his team understood that. And the most important part is that, for me, it was a life-changing decision, right? For me, that that step that I took was one of the most critical decisions that I've made in my life, right? And to see that the team and the doctor recognize that and to acknowledge that it is indeed one of the most critical decisions of my life and to treat it that way, uh, is very important for them to take it, because like you mentioned, you could go to a hair mill and for them, you're just another patient, one of the 100 patients that they probably treat in a day, and that, it's you're no
yeah.
different. And seeing that a team of doctors surrounding you who cared and took the way you were taking your decision, is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's critical. Tell me a little bit about how hair loss affected you, because obviously it affects everybody differently.
Mm.
There's channels that are kind of supportive of guys accepting their hair loss. There's channels like Bald Cafe is a popular channel who kind of teaches you about
Mm.
medication, how to prevent hair loss.
Mm.
And then obviously my channel is more about hair transplant surgery. Obviously, they go hand in hand, preventing. But tell me about, like, when you first started experiencing hair loss and how it affected you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was initially when I started noticing it, I was concerned and worried a little bit. But then, in my case, because I had thick hair, my hair texture was always thick, I was finding a way to cover it, using some product,
Mm.
trying to comb from right to left, from left to right, from both side to the center, and just every way you can try. And then slowly and gradually, you kind of, and in my case, you know, it really bothered me to a point where it occupied most of the real estate in my mind. You know, just thinking
Wow.
about hair loss was always on my mind. Uh, and because of that, I may have canceled plans with my friends. I may have canceled, going to weddings because of that. It just, and I, if you can find a way to deal with it and deal with the life, great. I couldn't, to be very honest. And it affected me in a way that, I was unable to enjoy the life, the smaller, happier moments of life the way I should have. in my 20s and in my
Mm.
30s. It's really the prime time. And I thought that, I was spending too much time, worrying about how people are looking at me, how I should be looking versus how am I looking right now. Is this the end? So that self-confidence and self-esteem, it was dented so much that it was impacting the other aspects of my life. You know, if I wanted to do something, if I needed to make a presentation at work or something like that, you know, it was impacting my work. You know, I was feeling like,
Wow. Yeah.
I wasn't my 100%. Uh, and the one thing that was stopping me from being there was my hair loss, really. Uh, I don't know why, maybe I should have found a way to deal with it better, but it was impacting me to a degree where I thought, what am I going to do? And then you start thinking about, okay, a lot of people just shave their head. I can do that. But then the mind says, well, you have a really round face. It's not gonna look good on your face.
Yeah.
So, it's like constantly thinking about things was another thing. So yeah, it really impacted me negatively, hair loss and yeah.
And head shaving is such a cultural thing because also I think head shaving is culturally acceptable
Mm.
here in the US. But I noticed in South Asia, head shaving is not really a thing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's not like you're really like not. It's not like there's like a Vin Diesel in Bollywood that's shaves his head
no.
and like that's not really a thing.
Yeah, it's not.
So
It's not. And especially with the South Asian family and Indian family, it's like people don't hold back from pointing out that bald spot. They're like, hey,
right.
you're meeting your aunt after a couple of years, like, hey, what happened to your hair? That's the first thing that they're gonna comment. Oh, what happened? You're all bald. You look older than you looked just a couple of years ago. What's going? So it's like, yeah.
And yeah, and that's very difficult. I felt kind of very similar in the sense that like I felt in a way that my youth was being robbed
Mm,
from me because people would make these
uh,
comments like, wow, you look
yeah,
older. Or I would tell people would ask me my age, and I would tell them my age, and they would just have this look on their face like, wow.
yeah.
I remember going to a barber, and I was 27. He was cutting my hair, and he said, how old are you? I was like 27. And he was like, wow. And you're already going that bald?
Wow.
And I just was like, yeah.
Mm,
And I kind of thought at that moment, like, man, I wish I would have been 40. So maybe
yeah,
he wouldn't have said it like that way, Because,
yeah,
yeah, it's true. I
yeah,
was young and losing my hair. It's not really acceptable, socially
yeah.
acceptable. So I can definitely empathize with you there.
Mm,
So you had these feelings, it occupied the real estate in your mind, which it did mine as well. And I'm sure the people watching and people who are Hair Restoration Network members are probably all in the same boat where you're just constantly thinking about it. And um, one thing that I found interesting, though, is that you were already married. So
mm,
one thing that guys kind of they want to treat their hair loss to kind of attract the opposite sex or
yeah,
to and they think a lot of guys will tell me like, oh, if I find a wife or a girlfriend, I'm not going to care about my hair
mm,
loss.
mm.
But tell me about that because obviously that's not true in
No,
your case.
definitely not. I mean, it's I mean, I was always, concerned about how I looked. I was always ensuring that I eat the right food. I don't gain a lot of weight. It was just part of, how I view myself. And I took a lot of confidence from the way, I was looking and the way I was, feeling physically, myself. Uh, and then having not have hair was just, big wrench in everything else that I was trying to do
Right.
right. And then I started feeling like, okay, then what's the
Right.
point of me eating healthy if I'm not gonna look good, and I'm not gonna feel good about myself. So it was more than even though I was married, uh, it was reflecting to myself, what I was. So it was also more about me, how I look at myself. And then I'm like, okay, I'm doing all this hard work, I'm not, I'm avoiding all the bad food, I'm exercising, I'm doing things right. But then, I'm still not looking the way I want myself to look. So yeah, I mean, it was still a concern. And then, especially in the family and everything, every time you're in a birthday party or something, you see a
Yeah.
little drip of that sweat coming down from your, crown down, and then you realize,
Yeah.
people behind me are, I'm sure, looking at this and thinking something. So then your head starts to tell you all these things that may not be happening, but then you're still concerned about it.
I don't know if you were like this, but for me, is like when especially when I got to a point where I was very similar to you as a diffuse Norwood
Mm,
6. When I got to that point where like you can see completely through my scalp, I lived under a hat. I mean, I would not leave my house
yes.
without a hat. There's no way I would leave my house without a hat. I always had the hat on. And if there was events or things like that where I couldn't wear a baseball hat, I would avoid them, right? Like a wedding
Right.
or anything where you had to dress up and you couldn't wear a hat, because I just did not feel confident without that hat. Even, and it's embarrassing to say, but I think there's some power in being honest with insecurity. Even going out to take out the
Mm,
trash, I would put on a hat because I didn't want my neighbors to see me without a hat. It got to that point, and the amount of freedom that a hair transplant has
mm,
awarded me, is amazing, because now I don't worry about that. I go out, I don't have to wear a hat, I don't have to do anything like that, or even wear fibers or anything like that, which is something that I was also doing. I
yeah.
was, I was wearing the fibers religiously,
And that's exactly why
and
opening up right now, because I was exactly like that, always putting my head on, and not going out without a hat and stuff like that. And I think because initially I was, like you mentioned, I was trying to cover my face, not show myself. But now that I have hair, the one thing I don't want to do is to be not free again. you know. Uh, Now I don't want to worry
right,
about, oh, what if people ask me about my hair transplant? No, I mean, I'm done with that. The whole reason why I got this done is so that I can be free and not have all this burden in my head. So that's the reason why I'm now opening up and talking about it, because I'm ready to address the little elephant in the room, and it's okay, because this is the whole point, is to be free and to talk about it openly without having to worry
yes.
about all those little things.
Have I don't know, do you work from home or do you go in an
I go
office?
in an office very rarely, but most of the time I work from home. Yeah. So
But have like coworkers or people that haven't seen you in a while, I mean, obviously, like you said, there's an
yeah.
elephant in a room. There's a huge difference, right? People know, like obviously they know, like, wow, this guy was bald and now he came back with a full head
Right.
of hair.
Right.
Have you had people like ask
Yeah.
you like, hey, what did you
Right.
do? Or like, is that are you wearing a toupee,
Yeah,
or is
yeah,
that,
yeah. No, I have, and I'll be very honest, and that was one thing that I was concerned about initially, that okay, I was thinking like, how am I going to answer this question if somebody asks, what should I say? This, that, or maybe say, no, I've just started on some medication and it's helping. Should I lie, or what should I really, how should I answer it?
right?
And I really thought about that through deeply, and then I thought, well, here I go again, you know. Uh, Here I go again with all my thinking and causing the stress in my life. So then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna openly answer the question. If somebody asked me about my hair, oh yeah, I got a hair transplant done recently, and it wasn't easy, to be very honest, Marvin. Initially, it was difficult
Yeah.
to you know accept that, but then once I start to do that, you know, and the response that I got from people was so positive. They're like, no way you got a hair transplant. Really? It looks so good. No way. Let me see. Especially with my barber. Like my
Yeah.
barber was like, I saw him after like several years, maybe 10 years later. And then, he was like, he started cutting my hair, and then few minutes later, do I know you from before? And I'm like, and I told him my name, and I showed him one of my pictures that I took with him some time back, when I was. And he's like, "Holy moly! I didn't even realize it was you. I can tell you have a hair transplant done." So now that kind of a feedback helps me even more with my confidence, because now I
Right.
know that
Yeah.
people are not really thinking it like that. People are really responding positively to this transformation, and so now I'm eager to tell people about it. Really, so
Yeah.
that is the change in the way you approach it has helped me a lot.
Yeah, and I was the first time I had my hair transplant, I wanted to conceal
Mm.
it. I was kind of worried about like, how do I hide this at work? How do I
Mm.
make sure that people aren't seeing? Because I was going in the office at
Yeah.
that time. And then, you know what? There came to a certain point where I was like, well, they're not dumb,
Yeah.
obviously. And I thought the same thing with you. I was like, well, maybe I'll just say I was taking medication and it redid it. But it's like, don't be a
Mm.
phony. Like, just they're
Yeah.
be honest, because there's no medication that's going to
Right.
do what is achievable with surgery,
Right.
like none. Even the best responder is not gonna have that much regrowth from finasteride or
Right.
dutasteride. It's just not gonna
True.
happen. There's only one way, and that's through surgery. It's kind of like the same thing with like those bodybuilders
Mm.
that try to say that they took creatine and they had this transform. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man. There's really only one thing that's going to get you to that point, and we all know
Right.
what that is. And it's not some
Right.
supplement. So I kind of felt I should be honest and just. And then once I was honest, it was like again, just like with the hair loss thing, it's like something lifted off my
Yes.
shoulders. I'm like, okay, I don't care. People don't care. If anything, people have been like, "Oh, really? Where did you go? Did you go to Turkey?"
Right.
It was like the number one question that I've always get when I meet people now. Like um, just I think a few days ago, I was at a park with my son,
Mm.
and people started asking me what I do, and I told them about the hair transplant network, and they were like, "Really?
Mm.
Oh, wow! So you got one?" I said, "Yeah." Did you go to Turkey? Was the number That's the number one question that I always get. Like, did you go to Turkey?
Right.
So it's more socially acceptable now
Mm.
because more people are being honest about it. And the more people are honest about it and not afraid to say it, it's not gonna be a thing,
Right.
It's gonna be like it should be in my mind, similar to braces.
Mm.
Nobody ever is like worried about, oh, do you wear
Right.
Invisalign or do you wear braces or anything like that, because it's like, yeah, there's no problem with it.
Right.
It's it's hair. We had hair at one point, we lost it, so we had to do surgery to get it
And
back.
it's our
It's not a
it's
big
our
deal.
own hair, so it's not like we are getting it.
It's our
Yeah.
own hair, yeah.
Yeah. We can cut
Exactly.
it,
So
comb
there's
it,
no
shampoo
there's
it,
no
it grows, and it's really the hair. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So I don't, I'm happy to try to break down those
Right.
barriers to make people kind of see like, hey, it's okay to be honest about, hair transplant
Yeah.
procedures.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this podcast and being honest and open about your experience with Dr. Patella, with your experience with losing your hair, and obviously how the hair transplant has impacted you. And I want you to continue coming on the forum and updating us, because I think that's another big thing
Yeah.
is people have this idea, or they watch a video on YouTube and say, hair transplants only last a certain amount of
Mm.
years. So there's very few people that, once they get their hair transplant, the results come in, they kind of forget about it. And it's understandable. They
Right.
forget about the forum, they forget about everything, and they just live their life. But if you were able to update us every at least a year, 2, 3 years down the line, and just say, hey, I haven't signed in a while, and
Right.
this is what my hair is looking like at 3 years, at 5 years. And people can see, wow,
Mm.
you know what? That stuff really maintains. I mean, my first hair transplant was 11 years ago,
Wow.
and it's still going good. Obviously, I'm on medication,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's longevity in it,
Right.
and my life has gotten a lot better. My confidence has gotten a lot better, and I can't honestly imagine where I'd be if would have never gotten a procedure.
Yeah, yeah. No, your hair
So,
looks great, Morgan. And I was one of the inspirations that I, when I looked at your results and I was like, wow, I wish, I hope I could get something like this. Even 50% of this, I'll be happy, So, so you have great results.
I have to say your hairline is a lot denser though than mine. 100%. Your hairline is super super dense. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
It's not see through at all. It looks super natural.
yeah,
Um, Dr. Patella just hit that out of the park. I mean, he did an amazing job.
yeah.
It's kind of making me want to get a little bit more, to be honest with you. I'm like, if I could
Uh,
have a little
tell
bit
the
more.
gritty.
That's another
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
with how are you dealing with the hair greed? Have you gotten hair greed at all?
No, surprisingly, I don't, I was, I see about it, I read about it a lot, that too. In my case, because when I look back at what it was for me, just 12 months ago, and compared to myself now, my brother the other day is like, "Man, you have too much hair now." And so how do you maintain it?
It's
And
too much.
yeah, it's too much. So no, I fortunately I don't, and it's I think like you mentioned, I'm happy with the hairline, I'm happy with the crown, I'm happy with how the sides and the back look. So at this point, I'm not. I am curious to see how things pan out in next, 2, 3, 4, 5, several years from now, and we'll see where we are at, and I'll obviously constantly report it to the guys as to where I am.
Yeah, and I think one thing about your case that's a little bit different than most people is that you had such a large number
Mm,
in one trip that yeah, you wouldn't really be because if you would have gone and had like maybe 4,000 grafts,
mm,
to the front, then you would have hair greed, right?
yeah.
Because then you would want to do the
Yes.
crown.
Right.
And then you do another 4,000 grafts and maybe you do the crown, but it's not as dense. So
Yeah.
you did it all at once, and it's so previously that was sort of frowned upon,
Right.
and a lot of doctors still don't like that. But I think when you choose the right doctor
Mm,
that can do this,
right.
it's a game changer for me. I did 4 surgeries and I got, almost about the same number of grafts. But if I would have redone it again now,
Right.
I definitely would have just done it one time.
Right.
One time, save
Yeah.
and just get it all done and be good,
Right. 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 Right.
But well, Jagar, I want to be, uh, I know you're a very busy person, and I thank you for being on the podcast. Um, if I'm gonna go ahead and link your thread
Mm,
in the description of this video, and if anybody wants to reach out to Jagar, you can message him on Hair Restoration Network. His username is YodaHead,
mm.
which is funny. Well, Yoda head because you had a head like Yoda before, right?
Yep. With two or
So
three hairs sprouting.
now we're gonna have to change it to Chewbacca head.
I like that.
That'll have to be your new
Right.
username.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate that. So I'll have all that information in the description. And if there's anything you can think of that you would want to tell, people that were in your similar shoes,
Mm,
like if there's anything that kind of that you when you were researching that
mm.
you would have wished somebody would say, what would that be?
Uh, I think research, for not just short span of time, but research for a longer span of time, if you can. Uh, because when you research for just a few days or few weeks, you learn about, okay, FUT versus FUE, or what's a good doctor versus not a good doctor, what's a good donor. So you learn about the foundational stuff. But then when you research for a longer period of time, then you can relate your specific case in your specific scenario, to all that knowledge that you have acquired. So, you may feel initially after research of couple of weeks or, even a month that, okay, a lot and pretty much everything. Trust me, it's not everything. There's a lot more to hair
Yeah.
transplant than that. So give yourself time, you have waited long enough, so long, just a few more weeks or a couple more months of added research is only going to help you, make the right calls. And that added research may just uncover something that can mean a difference of day and night. So that's one thing that I would, if there was one thing to say out, that's probably one thing that I would suggest.
Amazing. Absolutely spot on. I agree with everything you're saying. Don't put yourself in a rush, which I think a lot of guys do, is they kind of put themselves in this time
Mm,
constraint where it's all in their own mind.
right.
I mean, you've been balding for
Yeah.
years, but now all of a sudden your constraint is, I need to get this done in 4 months,
Right.
which is crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to rush the process. You want to give yourself enough time to get the procedure, well, to research carefully, make sure the surgeon is good,
Yeah.
understand how it's going to go. And that's another thing about, that's great on being at the hair restoration network, is you see kind of the process
Mm,
that people go to. Like, you don't just look like you the next month. There's a period where you go through shedding, you look worse than you did before the procedure, you start to slowly get the
yeah.
hair, and it's month to month to month, you look a little bit better, a little bit better. And seeing another
Mm,
person go through that experience, and multiple people go through that experience, is amazing
yeah.
research, because then when you finally get it done, you kind of know what to expect, in a sense. Okay, I'm going to be dealing with this
Right.
shedding and all that stuff.
Right.
So don't sell yourself short on the
Yes.
research. That's a great bit of information. Well, thank you, Jagar, for being on the podcast. I'll let you go. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and thank you again for showing your face. This has been an amazing
Thank you,
podcast.
Melvin. Appreciate this time. And to all the viewers and everybody, if you need any help or anything, like Melvin said, there'll be a link. I'm open to helping anyone anytime, really. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right.